thank you, and welcome to the podcast, What Our Parents Didn't Teach Us. I'm here today with my friend Brett. We're going to be talking about finances, we're going to be talking about lessons we've learned, and ultimately, the topic will center around success and things that we know now that we wish we would have known. And one of the things I like to mention is just because you had amazing parents or just they did the best they could, it doesn't mean that they failed in not teaching you these things. It's really just about the fact that they couldn't teach us. So there are things that they didn't have as a reality that we now have. And being equipped for those things and being able to handle them and navigate life today is about these conversations. It's about taking the knowledge we have from each other and really putting it into a format that can be consumed quickly and learned and understood so that we can get on to the next thing, because the world is just moving really quickly. It's moving really fast, and we don't have the opportunity to just study the history books to learn what we need. Sometimes it just needs to come down to a conversation. So that's what we'll be doing today. Brett, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. First of all, Courtney, thank you so much for having me on the show and on the podcast. I'm glad you mentioned that caveat about our parents, because I definitely don't want my parents to listen to this and think that I'm going to be talking about things that I wish that they didn't teach me, and think they didn't do a good job of raising me. They did a great job of raising me. Just to your point, there's just certain areas that uh, you're taught what you know and in your experience, and as we grow and as we learn, we grow and we learn more. So it's building upon that foundation. So now with that, I was born and raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. My father is retired Army officer. My mother was a nurse. She's now retired, and I went to high school in Alabama, and then I went to college at Florida State University. It's about 6.5 hours from Tuscaloosa, where I grew up, and that was my first kind of life exposure. In Alabama, growing up, you're kind of limited to the people you interact with and their backgrounds. So then moving to Florida State, it was very eye opening. And then from there, I went to UCLA Law School, and once again, just really opened up my aperture on people's background and what's made them successful. After that, I joined the military, spent about 15 years on active duty in the Navy as a JAG officer or a lawyer. Then I did some time working for Uber, and now I am working for Wells Fargo as an enterprise compliance officer.
Wow, that's amazing. Quite a journey. Sounds like you and I might have the have in common that we're both Swiss Army human. We're just like, I just decided to do something and then I learned how to do it. And like these scissors won't like cut glass, but they'll cut something in a pinch if you need it. So you just like know how to do a lot of things, but none of them are you absolutely exceptional at.
Right.
But with your experience, it does sound like you got exceptional at a few things. So maybe that's law or finance. What are some of the areas you believe you are exceptional in?
Well, one thing I really enjoyed in the military was I was able to focus on being a general counsel, and
Mm.
so that meant I was international law. I went to Georgetown to get an LLM in international law, and I was focused on that, and with that rules of engagement and working cross functionally with other nations and other branches of the service. So that was something I really enjoyed. I was able to hone my skills in that area to also become a pretty proficient compliance and data privacy
Mm.
specialist, because in the military, that general counsel role also includes like a chief privacy role to make sure we're in compliance with the federal laws and with the laws of the nations we're operating with. So I did enjoy that, and it also allowed me to get really comfortable doing investigations and
Mm.
interviews. A large part of being an attorney in the military is conducting investigations, establishing the facts, applying the law, and providing guidance and counsel based on that. And that's what I did at Uber. I was like a privacy compliance, but also an investigator for their
Mm.
relations team. So that was very beneficial.
Nice. So it's just kind of searching for the facts, searching for the crux of the issue. What's really going on down underneath all of this and all the mumbo jumbo and all the legalese and the things we kind of at first glance don't understand. What's the purpose? What's the real thing that matters in this moment?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I think that skill would definitely serve you well in life in general.
It
So,
does. It helps you. Now that I'm in the corporate world, it there's so many things require that investigator eye. What is the root issue? What's the root cause of this problem? So you got to take a step back. Okay, what's the issue? What are the contributing factors? And then at times it's you need to have a separate team come in and do a investigation to identify what's causing the problems and make recommendations to provide solutions.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So what do you think is the most important thing you've learned as you've, matured through different stages of your career and through, like law school? And I know that young lawyers are notorious for being whippersnappers and get in there and throw a bunch of words at it and fix it. But if you could go back and just have a quick conversation with you, maybe 15 years ago, what do you think is something? And you're like, you don't know this yet, but this is going to be important.
Oh wow, Courtney, we don't have enough time to go into that.
Oh, so you have an elevator ride with your past self, and you're just like elevator ride, and you're like, all right, I know we don't have much time here, but this is important. Like, just remember this.
Buy a lot of tech stock. That's what I tell myself.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'd all be in a different spot if we did that.
Exactly. I'll say this, and kind of focus on financial independence. That was something that wasn't discussed growing up. I'm second generation in my family to go to college. First generation, first to be a lawyer, to go to a professional graduate degree program. And for my parents to be able to pay for my undergrad is a major accomplishment. I didn't have to pay for that. They saved and took out loans and worked multiple jobs to make sure I didn't have to pay for that. And that was an outstanding foundation and one that's critical to my success. But that meant they did not pay for law school. So I was able to get some scholarship money and some things paid, but it was very expensive. And when I graduated, I had over $100,000 of debt just from law school. And I joined the military, and so I had a steady paycheck, making good money. But I never forget, one of the first things I did was I met with a financial advisor. And I was in San Diego, young, 24, mid-20s. And my advisor looked at all my assets, looked at my debt, and my question to them was, where should I invest my money so 10, 15 years from now, I don't have to worry about where I'm working. I can enjoy life and do what I want to do. And he looked at me and he said, Brett, you've already made the investment. You invested in yourself. You don't have any money to invest in something else. That law school education was my investment in myself. And he said, the best thing you can do is maximize your investment and be the best lawyer you can be, and try to take advantage of that. But that set me back. I was looking forward to putting money away and investing in stocks and different things. And when I found out I couldn't, I was discouraged. And then the next thing, we all know the basic advice, right? You got to have 6 months of savings.
Sure.
Right, 6 months of savings for emergency purposes. Do you know how hard it is to save for 6 months when you're paying $100,000 of school debt?
I can imagine. I don't have any school debt, but
I am not a financial advisor. I am not a financial professional. But when people say, "Oh, the first thing you should do is have 6 months of savings," I laugh, because where I came from, that's not possible. You can't pay the bills, cover everything, accumulate 6 months of savings, and still have enough life left to invest it. Have 10, 15 years later to enjoy it. Life's too short.
Yeah.
So circling back to your original question, I would say that I need to align myself with people who are investing in items, in vehicles, financial vehicles that accumulate consistent long-term growth. So that after 15 years of working, I have more options.
Yeah.
If a tech company calls me and says, Brett, we have this great idea. We want you to come in and be the chief privacy officer, chief privacy counsel.
Hmm.
Uh, we really think we're going to take off. We're new. Um, it's something I believe in. They're not going to pay a lot because they're new. I can afford to say, you know what, I believe in this,
Yeah.
or I want to do some humanitarian work overseas, or I
Mhm.
want to volunteer, or I want to work on a farm, or I want to be able to do what I want to do in my life, my passion, and not worry about
Mhm.
it is. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
I
everyone's got.
think I think that like that idea of wealth and freedom really comes down to one of my favorite examples is being able to say yes or no.
Mhm.
And I don't think people put enough stock in both of those answers. So being able to say yes to a job that won't pay you what you think you're worth or something like not about worth, but more just about like what you could get paid in another area of doing the same thing. And being able to say no to a job that might pay you a lot but isn't aligned with who you are as a person. I think being able to say yes and no because of factors other than money is true freedom for a lot of people. And I think that's where you want to get to with wealth. I like what you mentioned about, not being able to live the life you wanted. And I have had that conversation with many people who tout the popular, if you just skipped your Starbucks and saved that $5 and invested it in stocks and did all this other stuff, you talk about people that, guys that live on nothing. And they get to 45 and they've lived on ramen for their entire life and they have $40 million living, like making 30,000 a year and you're just like, "Wow, that's mind-blowing." But the point is, once you've amassed that kind of wealth, living a certain lifestyle for 40 years, it's going to be very difficult for you to do anything with it. Like, why have $40 million if you're not going to spend it? You really can't take it with you. Regardless of what we know or we'll debate about the afterlife, so far we can like basically decide the money will do you no good there. So at this point, like amassing $40 million doesn't do you much good unless it empowers you to do something else. So why amass money? Why look for wealth? Why make six figures? Why make seven, 10, something like that? It has to come back to this point of like, why do you want to do that? Like you said, I wanted to be able to work for whoever I wanted to work for, whether or not the money was good. For me, it's whether or not I want to be able to work. My wife is a teacher. And some days, snow days or other things, I just want to be able to be like, nah, I'm not going to work today. I just want to be able to be with her, go get a coffee. So being able to say yes to the things I want to say yes to and no to the things I want to say no to has been wealth for me. I think you have to define it before you chase it. Because if you're just chasing it to have a number in the bank or you're just chasing it because some guru said have 6 months of savings, what is the point? Because then you'll get there and then you'll be stuck again and you'll be reliant on the next guru. And I guarantee all those gurus are going to change and they're going to have different opinions. But why do you want 6 months? Why do you want the 50, 30, 20? Why do you want all these other financial pieces? You have to have a bigger purpose. Otherwise, it's just money. It'll just go away. It'll just get spent.
Absolutely right. You have to have a plan, an idea of what you want. But there's something else. It's also access to knowledge about finances, but it's access to capital. There's a show, another podcast called How I Built This,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very interesting. And I like to listen to it just because it has talks to entrepreneurs and they start about where they came from, and most of them had access to money that growing up I had no idea. There's no way.
Yep.
And they would say it so casually. I had an idea. I wanted to make these brownies, and I knew I needed $100,000. So my parents gave me 50, and my uncle gave me 50, and then I was able to take. I couldn't ask my family for $50,000.
Yep.
That's we don't have that. I don't have an uncle. I don't have any. I don't know anyone I could ask for that.
Even if you asked for $50, they'd be like, "You really need
Exactly,
that?"
exactly right. But another way to look at it is, and Jeff Bezos with Amazon. I think he, don't quote me on this, but from what I heard, when he started Amazon a long time ago, he called his parents and they gave him $200,000 to start.
Mm-hmm.
I I couldn't. I don't. Just that concept that you can just call someone and get that money. So, and it's access. It's being in those circles, and that's what's important. That's the way we need to align ourselves. As young professionals, as up and coming professionals. putting ourselves in a position to have access. There's new venture capitalist companies coming out, and they're trying to change the model to give us access.
Hmm.
But that being able to put something aside so that your family in the future can, as you say, have the power to say yes and the power to say no.
Hmm.
When I went to UCLA and Florida State, that's when I realized, hey, there's people out here who aren't having to scrounge and pay for college.
Hmm.
It it's paid. It's been paid
Yeah.
generations ago, and they're here because they enjoy it,
Hmm.
and they can say yes and no to that next job because it's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And the concept is was foreign to me, but that's something that I'm interested in helping build some type of platform so that people of color, minorities, are exposed to that at a younger age.
Yeah. Well, and we have so many cultures and so many societies and levels that are minorities. It's really important to represent them and to give them, like you said, the access to really build the relationship. One of the reasons I started this podcast was to build relationships. I had an interview with someone from South Korea and another person who was in Turkey and another person who was in Luxembourg. And you're just like, how are we doing this? We're just trying to create this network of relationships because that's access. It's access to knowledge, which is power. It's access to money, which is power. And it's really just creating our own grid of power and of influence and of wealth and opportunity outside of the typical channels. You can't just rely on your parents for all the knowledge you need, and you can't just rely on your rich uncle for all the money you'll need. You really need to establish your own network and do it intentionally because you're going places and doing things. You don't go on in your house and turn on all of the lights because that, relies on an energy network. You don't turn them on to turn them on. You turn them on to see. And I think with anything that is energy, and that's money, knowledge, relationship, time, all of these things are just energy, which means we are conduits of them. And if you're going to be a conduit for energy, understand how you're using it and do that intentionally. And you'll definitely see the benefits and reap the rewards of doing it with a purpose. So don't just go out there and be like, oh, I'm just going to get to know rich people. No, get to know rich people because that lets you help poor people. Like create something that you're doing beyond just that initial goal. Zoom out, get up to 30,000 feet and say, I know why I'm going here. I don't check my flaps and make sure that everyone knows how to use the life jackets at the beginning of a flight because I, intend to fall. I know that I intend to get there, but I also know the risks along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's difficult though to know what you want to do. When I went to law school, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. When I joined the military, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I still don't know what I want to do when I grew up. It's hard to that type of planning. Not everyone has, and
Hmm.
things. Um, but that's where that independence is important. You can
Hmm.
try. If you don't try it, you don't know.
Yeah.
When I joined the Navy with the idea of I was going to do 3 years, be stationed in San Diego, maybe Hawaii, maybe Italy, get some child experience, and then after that, I'm going to go to the big law firm, make some money.
Mm. Hmm.
That was my, yeah. 15 years later, I'm still loving it. That's, you just don't know what the future's going to hold, what you want to do. And then to that point, transitioning, I'm recently transitioned, and it is a different transition from the military when you are a senior or a mid-level professional.
Hmm.
It is not the same, because you are not at the same level as your peers,
Hmm.
uh, as a lawyer, because of experience. So if you're not working for the government and you want to work for tech industry or a bank, you're competing with other lawyers who graduated at your same year group who've already worked at tech companies. They've already worked at banks. They've already been doing it. So you've got to come in and you have to convince someone to that your work experience is relevant. That's difficult.
Yeah.
Um, it's very difficult, and that's something that I would like to help others, particularly lawyers, who are transitioning and thinking about what they're doing next, prepare for the next level. Because if you're not working for the government, you really need to align yourself with the types of roles that you want to do when you get out, so you can have that independence.
Yeah. No, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there with the need for others. And sometimes you can develop friends that have this experience or friends that can help you along the way. But I want to just remind people that investing in yourself doesn't start or end with school, with paying for college. Like that may be an important step in your career path, but investing in yourself is the first thing you should invest in. Pay yourself first, invest in yourself first. And sometimes investing in yourself means getting help, literally paying a coach or paying someone with expertise or paying. Like spend that money, but don't spend it because you just want to, have this thing in return or you're looking for a service. Spend it as an investment and look at that mindset in the invest and reward and ROI, and bring that kind of language into everything you do. Invest time, invest energy, invest knowledge, and invest actual money. And work with people like me, work with people like Brett. Like just work with the people that have the knowledge and can show you the pathway, because there's definitely power in numbers. And this whole building of a network may require some investment. People are not just going to sit down with you because you're cool or have fun hair. You need to have something going for you. And that starts again with this: what do you want to do? That's one of the questions I have to answer most for all my clients is like, who are you? Like, oh, I'm a lawyer. I'm like, no, who are you? Oh, I'm, a digital content creator. I'm like, I do. I get so flustered and frustrated. I'm like, no, who are you? Why are you here? One of my favorite questions to kind of illuminate and bring that out is, if you are successful, whatever you're doing, don't care. If you are successful, how will the world be different? And I think that really illuminates the spark inside a person that says, oh, I see what I'm doing here. I see my fingerprint. I see my impression on this world, in this time, on these relationships and these people that I'm working with, living with, whatever it is. How will the world be different? So that's the question I wanted to pose to you, Brett. If you are successful, whatever you end up doing, we don't know where your career path, like you said, I'm still not grown up, still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But if you, who you were meant to be, is successful, how will the world be different, or hopefully better?
That is a that is quite a question, Courtney, and it's something that it goes beyond, I think, what you want to do um,
Mm-hmm.
for a salary or for work. It goes to what you like doing, and I like collaborations. I like working with people. I like building teams, managing teams. It's one of the reasons why I stayed in the military as long as I did. I enjoy doing it now as a data privacy officer, and I think that if I am successful, I will continue I'll be able to inspire others to be better at what they do. Um, but I'll also be able to build programs, um, build products that allow people to have access to the financial tools, so they can have that yes no power, that independence,
Hmm.
um, to have a global impact, a social impact. Whether you're pulling out your phone and it says, hey, this is according to this market research, this is where you should put your money, and according to your spending and your debt to income, this is what you should do. And if you do that, projected in so many years, this is where you'll be, perhaps something like that. Or, something as simple as, hey, um, we need to have better communication, as far as collecting data and organizing data and managing data. People can log in and use a platform and feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Not only the minimum amount of data is going to be collected that's necessary to reach a specific purpose that you consent to, and
Mm-hmm.
that is a tremendous issue now with COVID-19.
Sure.
We're exploring return to the office. Everyone is asking the question. Can we ask people about their the health screening questions?
Sure.
Can how they've been vaccinated? How are we going to collect and synthesize and use this data? So if I'm successful, circling back, I will be able to work with the team that answers these questions and provide solutions.
Yeah. So when I think of giving people power, one of the analogies, word pictures I like to use is a soundboard. right?
Mhm.
And when I first started to learning to use soundboards, I just knew gain and level. And that was it, and basically the sound master would get it set for whatever like event I was trying to help with. And then they'd set the levels with everything and then they'd leave. And they were basically like, you're here in case something goes wacky, you can hit the mute or bring the level down. But I couldn't master or mix anything. So if I'm hearing you correctly, one of the things you will do when you're successful, assuming you die, you leave this, your spirit moves on to the next stage, whatever that means, and you kind of like go up to the sky, and somebody or some being is like, where were you? Like, show me the trail through your life, through your success, through your timeline. Show me the light that is you moving through the world. I see you going and installing additional levels and additional meters for people to be able to adjust. It's like going into their control panel of their life and giving them something that not only is there for a purpose, but is there to bring them better clarity of sound and more education in the area of what they are mixing in their lives, in the area, like in the category of finance. So there are people that are doing it for spirituality and people that are doing it for physical health. And in the area of finance is just another section of the knobs. Because if you ever looked at a mixing board, it is monster. There are 50,000 knobs on a decent mixing board, and you're just like, I don't know which one to do. But you can tell a true master and you can really appreciate the art of the music more if somebody knows, oh, okay, if I just take this knob and turn it half a turn up because that person is making this noise and inputting this, the beauty that can come out of the power of knowledge of understanding how to run the board is really gorgeous. And so I see you not only installing these knobs in people's lives and saying, here's, turn this up and turn this down and attack debt this way and not this way. And don't worry about this 6-month thing, but do this in everyday life and do this in everyday life. Tipping 20% will actually make you money. And here's how I can prove it type of a thing. Like if you're just like, here are the systems and then here's how you use them. If you're like, you've decided you want to buy a house, you go, doot, 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 and you can buy a house. Like, don't ask about why, just know that like this knob will get you this result. Installing and educating people on how to use that, I think, will make the symphony of humanity more amazing and more glorious to listen to when we understand more specifically how to run these boards in our own lives.
Yes, absolutely. That's an excellent analogy. They're all interconnected. Whether you're working, as you said, spirituality, or whether you're working public service, or whether you're working in technology, or whether you're working in financial institutions, they're interconnected. You have to have the financial freedom so you can pursue other things. You have to have the spiritual peace, so you can be happy with yourself. You have to, be able to be healthy, so you can continue to pursue your life dream. So
Yeah.
it's no one can do everything. But to your point, yeah, it helps to have that life coach and someone to help you and guide you and be connected in the right circles.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I meant to I should have said this earlier, but of course I'm speaking only in my personal capacity and not on behalf of Wells Fargo or the Department of Defense.
Yes. No, we appreciate that. No one should sue him from a legal perspective. It's just Brett we're talking to here, not any big companies, and I think that's why it's beautiful. I also don't speak for any of the big companies that I ever mention on here. I know a lot about them and I understand how they work from my perspective, but that's all that it is. It's just our take on humanity, our take on the world. So, speaking of your take, what's the most, and now that we've covered the legality, this isn't Wells Fargo or anything else, what is your most controversial piece of advice that you're just sure is right? Maybe not in a year, maybe not in 5 years, but today you're just like, I'm going to tell you this and you're going to think I'm wrong. Something as simple as don't have 6 months of savings, but like most controversial piece of advice.
Wow, Courtney, this is being recorded, so whether I'm wrong or right.
All you know is you know it right now. In 5 minutes, you can change your mind. I don't care. But right here in this moment,
Controversial. I think of advice I'd like to give, but I'm not quite sure if I could say it's controversial. But I will say that the importance of having an ally is can't be overstated. And an ally, as opposed to a mentor, where an ally is someone who knows your work professionally and is going to be able to speak for you and step up for you, to help you grow and achieve, and no matter what, doesn't matter what you're doing.
Mhm.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be in your industry. It could be someone who has connections to another industry and say, hey, you know what? Courtney did a great job at this project. I think she'd be great at this, and I want to give like a personal endorsement for Courtney to work in this area or do this project or take on this podcast or lead something. That is something that is critical, to your professional development, your personal development. And as far as controversial advice, I guess my advice would be find your allies.
Mm.
Find your allies, and then once you find them, go through 10, 15 years, look back and see how they have shaped and how they've affected your growth.
So maybe the controversial bit is find your allies before you invest your dollars. It's like kind of the order of events. Some people would be like, just start investing and learn it and then kind of figure it out and then find friends. And you're just like, no.
Help you with that. Don't blindly invest. Obviously, you need to. Money is so difficult to come by. You can't throw it away. But yeah, I agree. It's fine before you start investing in different platforms, different avenues. Align yourself with the right people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's that network again, the grid, the power sources, and all these other things. I'd say my piece of controversial advice is view money just as a single asset, and just like you would diversify anything, diversify your investments, and really start to view every resource you have as an investment. Some people are like, oh, you can't invest. And I'm like, hey, even if you don't put a dime in it, if you invest time trying to learn the stock market, that in itself needs to return some investment. And understanding that when you invest a lot of time until you also invest money, nothing will happen. Like as far as money gotten back, and you can't get the time back in that way. So in the future, you may be able to save time when you invest your money because of the time you invested learning it. But none of this should be viewed as just like, oh, I'm just going to do this and then I'll invest my money. Like, quit rating money as more important or more scarce or more valuable or more impactful than everything else in your life, and start viewing everything you have as an investment and view it as something that should return. I'm spending this half hour chatting with you, and I'm doing lots of other podcast interviews and other things that I spend my time on. Each one of those is investment, whether it's walking the dog and picking up his shit, or having a conversation with a homeless person, or talking to the founder or the CEO of X company. It doesn't matter. Everything I do is an investment. And until I can measure that and realize that it's returning something to me, then I will feel like I'm at a disadvantage. I'll feel like I'm running this rat race. I'll feel like money is scarce. When you realize how much you have, then you can invest with more abundance and hopefully better results.
Yeah, absolutely. Money is not the end. It's just a vehicle. It's just an avenue. And to your point, what do you want? You have to ask yourself, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? And then use that vehicle to help you get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the premise of financial independence. Being able to have enough of that vehicle that it can take you where you want to go.
Yeah. I think a beautiful word picture on that one is the chef shows where they're given a bunch of ingredients and they don't start cooking. Like, you can throw butter in a pan if you're from the South and start cooking there. But you cannot just start cooking the meat. You can't start cutting the vegetables. You can't start doing something until you have a formal picture in your mind. And that picture doesn't have to be like, and this is where it will be served in 5 years, and then a big chef's going to pick it up and take this on, and then this and then this. And you don't have to go that far, but you do need to know, for this meal with these ingredients and this time, this is what I'm going to make. You need to have a vision in your head. You need to get really clear on it. You need to find accountability and people that are going to eat it and be expecting it to be delivered in such a manner. You can throw some spices in there and take on a little different flavor, but ultimately you need to know what you're creating, put that out there, have accountability, and then make it.
That's True, and it's also good to diversify. You don't have to be one thing. People call it a side hustle, or something you do for fun. For example, my wife and I. My wife is Greek. She's from the island of Crete, and we her family's been making olive oil for hundreds of years. And when we had the wedding in Greece, yes, no big fat Greek wedding comments, please. Uh, my family was there, and it was the most phenomenal thing they've ever. They were like, "What is this? We've never had this. It's olive oil." No, this is not olive oil, but that's how it is there. So we started importing it and distributing it here in the States. And no, we're not trying to get rich, and we don't plan to retire doing it, but we enjoy it. Like that's just fun to go to food tastings and work with chefs and distribute something for her culture, and something that we enjoy. So you don't have to be just one dimensional. You can do different things.
Hmm.
And that's part of growing and learning about what you want to do and who you want to be.
Yeah, beautiful. Love it. All right. Well, that is about the time we have today. But is there anything else you'd like to leave? Any final notes? And then if you have one place that people should connect with you, if they're like, Brett dropped some real truth today and I really want to know more about him or talk to him about this, how can they get in touch?
Sure. So, great way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. I'm on LinkedIn. Brett Cook, Brett, Cook Cook. That's a great way to get in touch with me. If you want the olive oil, it's www.tasteofmathiana.com. That's Mothiana, Mathiana. That's the village, the region where the oil's
Oh,
from. Feel free to reach out and contact us. Um, as far as dropping the knowledge, we're a product of where we come from, of our family and our upbringing. And I was fortunate that my parents put such an emphasis on education. My mother joined a sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, short incorporated. My father's Kappa Alpha Psi, fraternity incorporated, and I joined the same fraternity. And those professional social organizations helped us grow and to learn and continue to be exposed to different people and have different opportunities. And that's something where I was fortunate. If you're not, that goes back to the allyship. Find someone, invest the time. And if you are in a position to be an ally for someone else, find someone to support, invest that time. It's not about money. You'll get the money. Don't worry about the money, but invest that time in them to support them. And when it comes to financial dollars, you're right. It's just a vehicle. It's a vehicle. So invest your time to look at what's important, what you want to do, and then find the right way to get there. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And I know we have a mutual friend, Eddie, who's working on a platform that kind of speaks to what we're talking about, where we can open your phone and you get some real specific, quick financial advice to help level the playing field for people who weren't exposed to, who didn't have the financial independence that others may have had.
yeah.
So,
Eddie is going to be on the podcast soon. If nothing else, I'll just pitch up at his house and make him hop on with me. But yes, Eddie is working on something that'll really empower people that just want to know, where do I start? I also have another client who's working with crypto, and where do you start? And that's a great question to ask. But like Brett said, it is a vehicle. And so just like when you're going to buy a vehicle, the salesman's going to say, what do you want it to do? Does it need to hold 17 children and your dog? Or does it need to go really fast? Or does it need to do well in the snow, like in Colorado? But you need to know what you want it to do. So decide what you want to do with this money, and then it will work itself out. I have manifested unbelievable wealth in my life, not because I have billions in a yacht. Please don't show up at my house. I own no castles at this moment in time. However, the wealth that I needed was, like I said, the ability to say yes and to say no, just the power that that brings. And what has happened in my life has all come because of allies, relationships, time invested, all these other things that have culminated. But it all has happened and become a reality because I decided what I wanted that vehicle to do. I decided where I was going, and I decided that I was going to get there no matter what. So just decide. Start there. Decide, hey, I'm not going to have the legacy. I'm not going to go bankrupt like my parents. I'm not going to have to scrounge. I'm not going to be homeless. Instead, decide the alternative. It's like, I'm going to be abundant. I'm going to have friends who build me up. I'm going to have allies. I'm going to be able to run the credit card and not worry about where it's going and pay it off every month. And like all these other things, just decide. Start with deciding and see where you go from there. So with that, thank you so much, Brett, for being on here. I'm going to sign off with everybody here. And remember, the universe is conspiring with you.